The Yellowstone universe just dropped a major bombshell. The main villain for 1944 may have just been leaked, and fans are losing their minds. If you thought Banner Creighton was bad in 1923, wait until you hear who's potentially taking center stage in 1944. The clues are all there, and today we're breaking down everything you need to know about this new threat to the Dutton legacy. Trust me, you won't believe how deep this feud could go. Henry Creighton's potential return in 1944. 1944 is stirring up major speculation. As the son of Banner Creighton, one of the Dutton's most dangerous enemies in 1923, Henry represents a new generation of vengeance that could bring the family's old feud back with even greater intensity. While Banner's fate was sealed in 1923, Henry was left out of the spotlight, making him the perfect candidate for a dramatic resurgence in 1944. With 2 decades having passed, Henry would now be a grown man, possibly hardened by loss and determined to finish what his father started. In 1923, Banner's war against the Duttons was personal and bloody, but his tactics often relied on brute force and impulsiveness. Henry, on the other hand, could come into 1944 with a more strategic and calculated approach. Educated, politically savvy, or even aligned with outside power players, Henry could pose a more complex and dangerous threat than his father ever did. He might not just want to reclaim land or power, he might want to dismantle the Dutton legacy entirely, out of a deep-rooted belief that justice was never served for his family. Henry's return also opens the door for new rivalries and alliances. He may not come alone, perhaps he's aligned with government figures, wartime opportunists, or other ranchers who share his disdain for the Duttons. His presence could shift the power dynamics in Montana, especially if the Duttons are weakened or distracted by internal struggles. A Creighton with influence and resources would be a major threat and could serve as the central antagonist in 1944, challenging the Duttons in ways they've never seen before. What makes Henry Creighton's potential role so compelling is the emotional weight he would bring. Unlike a typical villain, his motivation is rooted in family, legacy, and loss, echoing the very themes that drive the Duttons themselves. If Taylor Sheridan wants to deepen the storytelling in 1944, reviving the Creighton bloodline through Henry would be a brilliant move, reigniting an old feud with fresh fire and generational consequences. The legacy of Banner Creighton's actions in 1923. Banner Creighton may not have survived 1923, but his actions continue to cast a long shadow over the Yellowstone universe. As one of the most aggressive threats the Duttons faced in that era, Banner wasn't just a temporary antagonist, he represented the fury and desperation of working-class sheep herders who felt oppressed by the powerful cattle barons. His bold move to wage war against the Duttons, including orchestrating brutal ambushes and allying with shady business elites, helped ignite a conflict that reshaped the Montana power structure. Even in death, Banner left behind unfinished business. What makes Banner's legacy dangerous is that his motivations weren't entirely without merit. He stood for a population that was struggling to survive in a land system tilted against them. Taylor Sheridan crafted him not just as a villain, but as a man fueled by generational injustice. This nuance could echo throughout 1944, as characters in the present may still feel the impact of his rebellion. Whether it's land disputes, lingering resentment, or institutional shifts sparked by his fight, Banner's ghost still haunts the territory. His legacy may also live on through his family, especially Henry Creighton, his son, who could become a key figure in Yellowstone, 1944. If Henry seeks revenge or aims to rebuild his father's mission with smarter tactics, it would carry the emotional and historical weight of Banner's failures and ideals. A new generation of Creighton-driven conflict could feel even more personal, especially if Henry blames the Duttons for destroying his family and sees himself as the rightful heir to the land his father died trying to protect. Banner's influence might also extend beyond his family. Political or business leaders who once supported him, like Donald Whitfield, could return in 1944, emboldened by Banner's sacrifice and seeking to finish what was started. This opens up a wide narrative avenue for 1944 to explore old alliances, secret vendettas, and the consequences of rebellion. Banner Creighton may be gone, but the fire he lit in 1923 could still be burning 2 decades later and ready to explode once again. New alliances and enemies in 1944. As 1944 approaches, the series is primed to introduce a new wave of alliances and enemies that reflect the shifting political and economic landscape of post-war America. The world the Duttons once knew is changing fast. Montana is no longer just about ranching and range wars. With federal expansion, returning soldiers, and industrial interests gaining ground, the Duttons will likely face pressure from powerful outside forces. Expect the emergence of wealthy developers, war profiteers, or even government-backed land agents who see opportunity in Montana's wide-open spaces. Internally, the Duttons may need to form uneasy alliances to survive. Unlike previous generations where the family fought alone, 1944 could see them aligning with former rivals or smaller ranchers being squeezed out by new power players. These alliances may come with a cost, loyalty, land, or even family. This would add a compelling layer of tension, as Sheridan has always excelled at creating morally gray decisions where survival means sacrificing part of your soul. Viewers can expect backroom deals, betrayals, and strategic marriages that could mirror the political nature of the 1883 and 1923 conflicts, but on a more modern scale. On the enemy front, there's strong speculation that Henry Creighton, Banner's son, could emerge as a legacy threat. He might represent a more calculated, long-game type of villain, one who learned from his father's mistakes. If Henry returns in 1944 as a well-connected, educated adversary, it could mean the Duttons are dealing with a more dangerous version of the feud they thought they buried decades ago. And if he's backed by powerful allies or corporations with their own reasons to unseat the Duttons, that would shift the balance of power in unexpected ways. There's also the possibility of war veterans returning to Montana with their own trauma and ambition. Some may align with the Duttons, bonded through shared values of land and legacy. Others may become bitter enemies, disillusioned men with nothing to lose, hardened by war and hungry for control. This infusion of new personalities and fractured loyalties makes 1944 fertile ground for explosive new rivalries. The alliances the Duttons form and the enemies they make may determine whether the family legacy survives another generation. Creighton's motivations and objectives. Henry Creighton may not have been a major player in 1923, but with 1944 approaching, the groundwork is perfectly set for him to rise. As the son of Banner Creighton, who met a brutal end at the hands of the Duttons, Henry's motivations are likely rooted in revenge, but not the impulsive kind. Unlike his father, who often let rage cloud his judgment, Henry could be a far more calculated and strategic adversary. His return to Montana may not be driven by emotion alone. It could be a long-planned move to reclaim status, power, and retribution. One of Henry's key objectives could be to rebuild his family name. With Banner's legacy tarnished and his land likely stripped away, Henry might aim to restore the Creighton influence through political or economic channels. He may no longer view the ranching feud as merely a land dispute, but as a generational injustice that must be corrected, whether that means buying up land, courting government connections, or exploiting post-war development opportunities. Henry could become a modern-day empire builder, one with a personal vendetta. It's also possible Henry sees himself as a rightful heir to Montana in a different sense, believing his father was wrongfully denied opportunity because of the Duttons' power. This mindset could fuel a more ideological mission, where Henry positions himself not just as an enemy of the Duttons, but as a leader of displaced ranchers or modern progressives who challenge the old guard. If he returns with military service under his belt or ties to political allies that could give him legitimacy the Duttons may not be able to ignore. Ultimately, Henry Creighton could be a reflection of the changing times in 1944. He's not just looking to settle a score, he might be aiming to reshape the playing field altogether. By shifting the narrative from cattle and fences to politics and land reform, Henry could become one of the most dangerous foes the Duttons have ever faced. And in true Sheridan fashion, the line between villain and visionary might get very blurry. Potential conflicts between Creighton and the Duttons. If Henry Creighton resurfaces in 1944, tensions between him and the Dutton family are almost inevitable. The last time these two families clashed, blood was spilled and land was nearly lost. Banner Creighton's war with the Duttons in 1923 didn't just end with his death. It left behind unresolved hatred, humiliation, and an open wound that someone like Henry would be itching to reopen. He may see himself as the only one left to restore his family's honor, and that could mean reigniting the very conflict that nearly tore the valley apart 2 decades earlier. But the battlefield may look different this time. In 1944, conflict isn't just about cattle raids or frontier shootouts. There's a chance the feud evolves into legal, financial, and political warfare. Henry might return with powerful backers or leverage new post-war policies to challenge the Duttons in ways Banner never could. Government contracts, land development, or oil rights could become the new battlegrounds. This makes the stakes even higher, especially if the Duttons are still recovering from war-related losses or leadership changes. There's also the personal angle to consider. Henry may hold individual grudges against specific Duttons, especially if he believes Spencer had a hand in his father's downfall. If Spencer returns in 1944, it could set up a deeply personal and emotional clash between these two men. Their fathers fought a vicious war. Now their sons could be caught in a cycle of revenge. And unlike the past, this new generation might be more ruthless, more modern, and far more dangerous. The Duttons aren't likely to back down, though. With Montana's legacy and their family's survival at stake, the Creighton name resurfacing would be seen as a threat, one that must be neutralized quickly. Whether through legal maneuvering, underhanded alliances, or outright confrontation, the Dutton-Creighton rivalry could be reignited with a fury, making 1944 one of the most volatile chapters in the Yellowstone saga yet. The Dutton family's ongoing struggles. The Dutton family has never had it easy, and 1944 promises to continue that legacy of hardship and survival. Between wars, land disputes, and internal family conflicts, the Duttons are constantly navigating a minefield of challenges. By the time 1944 rolls around, the impact of World War II will be hitting Montana hard, whether it's through labor shortages, returning veterans with trauma, or new federal interests in their land. The Duttons could be stretched thin, not only emotionally but financially and structurally. What makes their struggles so compelling is that they don't just face threats from the outside. Internal rifts have always threatened to tear the family apart just as much as any external enemy. Whether it's disagreements over how to run the ranch or differing values between generations, the Duttons have a habit of keeping their fights close to home. 1944 could showcase a family torn between old traditions and the pressures of a rapidly changing world. And with possible new leaders rising within the family, there could be a power shift that destabilizes everything they've fought to preserve. On top of that, enemies never really go away, they evolve. Old rivalries from 1923, like those with the Creighton family, may resurface in 1944 in new and more dangerous forms. Add to that potential land grabs, government intervention, and possible betrayal from supposed allies, and it becomes clear that the Duttons are going to need more than just grit to survive. This time, strategy, influence, and even compromise may be part of their arsenal, though that's never been their strong suit. What keeps fans invested is how these struggles shape the family's identity. Every generation of Duttons is forged in conflict, and 1944 is set to test their limits once again. Whether it's the burden of legacy or the cost of loyalty, these ongoing struggles reveal what it truly means to carry the Dutton name. The question isn't whether the Duttons will fight, it's how much more they can endure before something finally breaks. If this leak turns out to be true, 1944 is going to deliver one of the most intense rivalries in the Yellowstone timeline yet. But what do you think? Is this villain the real deal or just smoke and mirrors? Drop your theories in the comments, I'm diving in with you. And if you love everything Yellowstone from 1923 to 1944 and beyond, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more updates, leaks, and breakdowns. The Dutton drama is just getting started.